Well, greetings and good morning to all of you out there. Thank you for taking some time for joining us today here at Directions Training. We have in front of us a 1-hour webinar that's going to cover some Office 365 collaboration tools. And my name is Jim Demikis. I'm a Senior Applications Instructor here at Directions. Now I'm going to review the agenda for what we're going to be covering on the next slide here. And let me mention just a couple of other things if you are new to this platform, Adobe Connect, in which we are conducting this webinar. We've got a lot of people on the line today. So by deliberate design, the microphones have been muted for everybody except myself, but that doesn't mean that we can't have some interaction. If you look at your own screen, you may notice over on the far right side there is a chat window where if a question does come up, you're free to type something into that chat window and press enter, and that will prompt me that there is a question on the table. And near the end of the presentation, because I'm going to try to maybe cover about 45 to 50 minutes of material, and then leave a little bit of time for just general Q&A near the end, we could unmute the microphones to maybe have a little verbal interaction. All right. Another feature that you may notice is down along the bottom of your screen. There's a thumbs up. If I reach the end of a topic and say I'm going to transition, I might say, hey, are you all good to go? And if you can click the thumbs up to kind of let me know, feel free to do so. Now, let me just go to the agenda slide directly. Now, the fact is, since I'm not talking to all of you as individuals and as a rather large group out there, parts of this presentation may not be that new to some of you, but then again, parts of this presentation may be new to you as an individual. So we're going to start off with a pretty high overview of just Office 365 in general. Not going to spend a lot of time there, but the fact is, these collaboration tools are all parts of that program, Office 365, which is basically an online suite of applications hosted in the cloud around the internet that enables a lot of collaborative tools. So we'll get to Office 365 and just spend a little time defining elements of the screen and navigating around and giving you the proper terms for elements on the screen. Now, the first major one, however, we're not going to cover every single tool available in Office 365, but really focus on the ones that are probably the most popular or the ones that probably will be the most useful in the short term for collaboration. Now, OneDrive is just file storage. It's a drive that you can simply create folders and files, and you can create new files directly there, or you can upload existing files. But the issue there is, why are we talking about this in a collaboration sense? Because if you have files up in OneDrive, ultimately you can share those files with other people, and you can do what's called a co-authoring. And we'll give a brief demonstration about what that means, where more than one person could be actually working on the same document at the same time, so that if you were needing to work collaboratively with one of your fellow team members, you could go ahead and be working on that same file and be talking to each other about what's going on. All right. Now, you may notice that there's a part of this agenda that says today's secret word. All right, now let me just go to another slide real quickly, and I will come back to this slide momentarily. All right, as part of today's session, Directions is offering a little bit of an incentive for you. All right, and that is the ability to enter a raffle, and of course raffles have prizes. A 1-hour virtual Teams Power User class. All right. Now, I will put this slide up again later on when I announce what our secret word is, but you may want to just jot this down real quickly. All right. There's an email address there that says marketing@directionstraining.com, which you would need to respond to by 4 o'clock Central Standard Time to qualify. You'd have to include your name, company, email address, and your direct phone number, and you must include the secret word, which I will unveil, say in about 25 minutes. And then the raffle will be conducted, and if you do win, you will be contacted via email on Monday, January 14th. So I will come back to that slide when I announce today's secret word. But after we discuss the secret word, all right, Skype for Business. Now, once again, this may be a tool that you may be familiar with, but then again, some of you may not be. All right, Skype for Business is just basically instant messaging, but it can be more than instant messaging. It can also be a vehicle for doing online meetings where people can share screens, share files, and all of that. Now, the fact is, there's sort of been an evolution of these tools. Now, the last tool we're going to talk about is one that I think will probably be the newest to most of you. It's called Teams. Now, the Teams platform has really sort of just come into play very recently, and what it really is essentially is it combines a lot of these individual Office 365 elements into one tool on one screen, and that lets you do things such as share files. It lets you instant message, just like Skype for Business would, but it's all going to be in one platform. Now, of course, since this is a webinar where we have a limited amount of time and a lot of topics to talk about, we're going to really just be trying to give you a big picture overview of the tools, the navigation, and some of the basic workings. And so hopefully by the end of this, you'll at least have a sense of what the different tools are and why you may decide to start using some of them. All right. Now, with that in mind, Office 365, once again, is very simply an internet-based suite of tools that's all packaged together, and some of the tools in it are going to be very familiar to you, but we first have to address how you get there in the first place. All right. There is a website known as the portal, and I've already got it queued up here in my internet browser. Portal.office.com. Yep, when I go there, I'm presented with the screen where I have to present my credentials to sign in. Now, this is a trial account. This is not my live Office 365, but it's a representation of it. And of course, oops, let me make sure I'm typing that correctly. Microsoft. Helps if you put the S in there. And a password. Now, I'll keep this fairly brief, but I do want to just introduce some common elements in the Office 365 environment. All right, the first one is considered to be, oops, I just saw a question pop up over here. Okay, a recommended browser, very quickly. You can use any browser you want, all right? Realistically speaking, I am using Microsoft Edge, and that is the latest and greatest browser that comes with Office, with Windows 10. But it is compatible with all major browsers. Now, I'm not that much of a technical person, but I would say it's probably best to use a Microsoft-based browser like Internet Explorer or Edge simply because it integrates pretty seamlessly, but I really have had no people tell me they've had a problem using other browsers to get there. All right, but thanks for that quick question. Now, the landing page simply has icons for a lot of the applications that you might already be familiar with, such as Outlook and Word and Excel, but these are the web app versions. Now, we'll take a brief look at one of those, but not quite yet, because in OneDrive, you can also create files without going into the application first. But let's just talk about a couple of other elements that you may want to be aware of. Up at the top of your screen here, you're going to see what's called an Office 365 control bar going across the top of the screen. All right, and there's a button over here called an app launcher. Now, I'll use that in a few minutes, but that will always be present no matter what part of Office 365 you're working in, with the exception of Skype for Business, which is going to show up in a separate window. Now, having said that, since I'm at this landing page, what I'm going to do is go directly into OneDrive and then talk about, well, what is OneDrive in general, and why would you want to consider using this? Because drives essentially are nothing more than places to store files. And of course, this being internet-based, we have to kind of wait for things to catch up here on the screen. Okay, now this is a OneDrive account where there are already several folders created, but you might notice a standalone file sitting down here. All right, now the fact of the matter is that I already have files and folders available within OneDrive. What if I needed to put more in there or create my own folders? And we'll do all of that in a moment. Now, what I'd like to do first is just address the idea that once you're in OneDrive, you are going to see that there are some tools such as New and Upload up at the top of the screen, but the buttons up here on this little toolbar will change depending on where you are and what you are doing when you are in OneDrive. Now, down the left side it says, well, I'm in my files. Kind of like the root of the drive is just more or less called files. All right. Now, later on, we're talking about sharing files. We'll touch on this idea over here. But files usually, even if it's a drive that you would be using locally, like a C drive or a flash drive, usually you have folders. But let's stop there for a minute and talk about, well, why use OneDrive in the first place? All right. The fact is, this is an internet-based tool where your files are being stored up in the cloud on a website, meaning the accessibility is available to you anywhere that you can access the internet, present your Office 365 credentials. Now that frees you up from physical independence on a specific, say, flash drive, or perhaps being connected to a local network in your office where maybe you've had files put out on shared network drives, but they're not cloud-based, so they're not always accessible to you. These files are always backed up by Microsoft, so they're also secure, and you will see that the files in OneDrive are really your files only, so why talk about this in a collaboration class? Because the fact of the matter is, you have a choice then to say, but I want to work with other people on these files, and so I need to be able to share those files, and then maybe I need to work closely with one of my colleagues and work on the same file at the same time. But let's first kind of address just navigating here. Now, if I have folders available to me, they're all hyperlinks. So if I hover on a folder name and I click the hyperlink that it represents, it will take me in and show me what files I already have in there. So there's already existing files in here. All right. But if I have a lot of different folders, I'll have up here what's called a breadcrumb trail. So if I went into that folder and that's not where I wanted to be, I could back up one level to my files folder and come back sort of to the root of the drive. Now, if I go to another new folder here, I will see here I've got some Excel and PowerPoint files. So just simply a place to store files. But let's go back here to the beginning and say, well, if you were starting in OneDrive for the first time and didn't have any folders, how could you go ahead and get a folder created for yourself? New is a button that would allow you to create folders or actually create documents that did not exist already. Now, if I just needed to create a folder or two, I could click Folder, give the folder a name, and click Create. And then I would have another folder available to me. Now, it will note here the date in which that folder was created, who created it, all right? But at that point, if I wanted to go into that folder, what if I don't have any files in there? Now, before I talk about uploading files, the idea would also be Office 365 allows you to create files without using the desktop applications. Now, quick note on that. If you are already on a machine that has the fully loaded desktop applications like Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, you can still use those files, you can still use those programs, but you can also say, I want to go ahead here and create, oops, let me dismiss this. All right, so I'm just going to go up here and say New, and if I wanted to do a quick Word document, that would take me into what's called the web app version of Word. And quickly, the idea is it has most of the familiar tools that you might be familiar with from Word, but it does not have all of them. These web apps are a little bit of a light version, but right at the top, I could immediately double-click up in the title bar, give the document a meaningful name, press Enter. Notice it's saving the document automatically, but where is it saving it? It's saving it in that new folder I just created on OneDrive, and I could start typing. But if I was through with that document and I just went out of this altogether, I could just close up that document. But where did it go? Well, if I'm back in OneDrive, and I went into my new folder, just to wait for the internet, there's my new document sitting there waiting for me. So that's fairly easy, but I can also upload existing document I want to use. But I'll just do a quick example there. If I had other files that were on my other drives, I could click Upload Files. I could find a file that was on a local drive, click on it. And of course, I could do this with entire folders and multiple documents. Now, that's just quickly addressing how the files get in there. But since this is a collaboration, let's talk about the real issue of, well, now that you've got your files in a secure online location, what if you really did want to collaborate with somebody while you were working with one of these documents? Now, I'm going to go back up here to the root of the files folder. And then I am going to go into another folder here. And I would like you to notice this last column here called Sharing. I have some files that I've created that I've shared specifically with someone else. Now, I'm actually going to go to a different folder because I want to use a different file for this demonstration. Okay, so how did this name list or Excel file get shared with somebody else? And then what's the implication if I need to work on that file concurrently with one of my colleagues? Now, if I needed to do something with the file that was currently private, I could hover near and select the file and go up to the top here and click a share link. And then I could type in, now these are trial accounts, so the names of the people I'm sharing with are generically named student, but in the real world you would be searching your own organization's Active Directory. All right. The default is anybody can edit that file if I give them a link, but I can also say I don't want anybody to edit the file. Maybe I just want them to be able to read the file. By disconnecting that, I would not let that person edit. I can put an expiration date saying that the sharing rights will disappear after a certain day. If I don't want that person to be able to download a separate physical copy, but if you share a file, the recipient can go ahead and do that. But in any case, I'm going to stick with the default where I just want to go ahead and send this on out. But what I want you to notice is once I send that, basically it's going to change the status of that file to shared. Now, let's get right to the heart of the matter from a collaboration point of view. The idea is called co-authoring. Now, on a machine that you cannot see, because I have two computers hooked up to my presentation today, this file called the name list is a file that I shared with another person, and they already have that file open, and I want to be able to work with them in real time on that file. Now, if I wanted to open up this file directly from OneDrive, and I select the file, select one of them, I can open the file. Now, I can open the file in Excel Online, which is the web app version, or I could open it in the full-blown desktop version. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to open it into the online version. Now, when I get there, and there's not a lot in this file, but it will illustrate the point. What you're going to see up in the upper right-hand corner is the fact that this other person that I'm sharing the file with is also editing the file right now at the same time I am. Now, I'm going to prove that because I'm typing into a computer that I'm not typing on the keyboard on the computer I'm presenting from. All right? So I'm just going to say this person is typing something into that file, and I should be seeing what they're doing in real time. So, but if I were to take over and start typing, whatever I would type would be visible to the other person. Now that means in real time we are sharing that file and collaborating, and so we can get a lot of work done. Now, of course, this is a simple one-sheet file. Maybe you're working on a complex worksheet file with multiple sheets, and you may want your colleague to work on one sheet in the file while you're simultaneously working on another, but then you are working together. Now, before I go any further here, the idea then would be if I close out of that file altogether, right? Files are not overwritten, and one of the advantages of collaborating in OneDrive, right? And I just want to see what that message was real quickly. Local copy of Excel. Okay, Lori, the fact is local copies are not connected. You really don't want to download a local copy and edit it, because then you will create another version of that file, a separate physical version. All right, and that's what I was kind of getting at. All right, oh, the local version of Excel. Okay, the desktop version, absolutely you can, absolutely. All right, now let me just go real quickly here. If I open this in the full-blown desktop version of Excel, the desktop version of Excel. Now that's going to take a few minutes to boot up, but once it does, all right, I just got to wait for it. All right, now the fact of the matter is, this is the desktop version. And the desktop version has got the full complement of tabs and ribbons, whereas the web app version's got most of the tools but not all of them. And notice that the save button here has got a little circular arrow on it, meaning that yes, you are editing this file directly in the cloud. All right, now that's the idea behind that, and yes, you can. Now, final quick thought here is, because unlike sending somebody an email attachment, when you are sharing a file in OneDrive, you are not sending separate physical copies that may have to be reconciled. But if a file has been worked on by many people and the file is selected, files are stored in what are called versions, so that other versions, right, when other versions are available, the original version is version 1.0. As the file is successively edited, every version is stored in reverse order of when it was last worked on, but that also means I could go into version history and I could restore an older version and make it the current version. I could open an older version just to see what was in it, or perhaps delete that version. All right, now I do need to move on from OneDrive, but I think I saw one other quick question up here. Right? When you have it open in the, no, you can, Lori. The fact of the matter is, if the file is stored in OneDrive and you open it from the desktop version, as long as the file is stored in OneDrive, co-authoring is possible, whether or not you're using the desktop version or the online version. All right, no problem there at all. All right, now that's really about all the time we had to touch on OneDrive. All right, now before I go any further, however, it's time for a little bit of a drum roll. All right, the secret word for today's webinar, in case this webinar sort of whets your appetite for more classes, so let's just review that idea very quickly. All right, and once again, here's the idea. All right, by the end of the day, 4 o'clock Central Standard Time today, if you email marketing@directions.com with your name, your company, your email address, and your direct phone number, you'll be entered into a raffle to get a free 1-hour virtual class in Teams. All right, so the fact is, the one thing you would need to know is the secret word. All right, so I'm just going to say it once, folks. And the secret word for today is artichoke. I'll say it twice. Artichoke. All right, good luck in the drawing. Back up here. All right, and let me sort of transition on over into a slightly different tool. All right, now Skype for Business is a collaboration tool, but it's really aimed more at instant messaging, but it could be more than that. Now, Skype for Business, once again, has been around for a while, but the fact of the matter is, why instant message at all versus email? Email does not have the immediacy of Skype for Business. If you really need to get a hold of somebody quickly and you send them an email, you may not hear back from them for a while. If you're able to set up a instant message with somebody, you can get their attention right away and you can start, talking to each other. But from a collaboration point of view, Skype for Business is also a platform to set up and have meetings where you can do more than just chat back and forth. You can share screens. You can let other people take control of your screen. All right. Now, all of this stuff eventually is something that you'd also be able to do in Teams. Now, not all organizations are rolling out Teams yet. They could be using Skype for Business. Now, maybe your organization is kind of in the early stages here. So let's just take a quick look at Skype for Business for a few minutes and see what that's all about. Now, I'm already logged into Skype for Business here. And my other computer that you can't see is already logged in as well. Now, big picture is very simply that you as an individual need to be able to let other people know if you are in a position to engage in an instant message chat. This is called presence or availability, and an indicator that is green means I'm available, meaning that if somebody else saw that I was available, they should be able to expect that if they sent me an instant message, I would reply right away. All right? But it's tied to your Outlook calendar, and it could also be changed manually. Now, the fact is, if I was busy, now, do I have to deliberately say I'm busy? Not really. If I had an Outlook meeting on my calendar that started at noon, as soon as noon would roll around, Skype for Business would read my Outlook calendar and say, I'm busy. All right, that's kind of nice. If I'm doing a meeting in Skype for Business and I am the presenter, it'll automatically change me to Do Not Disturb. Busy will still allow an incoming Skype for Business message to be visible on your screen. Do Not Disturb will block that from coming on in. If I have to step away, I could say I will be right back. And the idea is, by understanding what the presence indicators are, and by the way, you will also see those in Teams. I'm trying to sort of lead up to the idea that Teams is meant to pull a lot of these things together into one interface, but right now we're focusing on this individual tool. All right, so that's your availability. Now, that's really not so much for your consumption, but for the people that you have to interact or collaborate with. Now, down below, the people that I need to chat with are called contacts. And of course, depending on the size of your organization, you might build a contact list of 5 or 6 people that you are frequently interacting with. Well, how could I do that? I could click into this area here to search for someone by name. Now, all of my, let's see here, student, and then I could simply right-click on that person's name and add them to my contacts list, and I could build myself a nice big list of contacts. Now, notice student 01. That's the other computer I have here sitting at my side. That person is available for a chat. All right? But before we start engaging in chats, let me also mention that any interactions that you have in Skype for Business, like emails, are going to be recorded in conversations, and I don't know if I have any just yet. But if you missed a call, you would be able to pull up here and see if anybody was trying to get a hold of you. But from a collaboration point of view, you can also have meetings. Now, the meetings in Skype for Business are not set up within Skype for Business. They are set up within Outlook. All right? Teams will address that issue, as you'll see in just a few more minutes. But its primary use is just as an instant messaging platform. Now, if I am the person who needs to initiate the instant message, I can simply find a person's name that I wish to have a chat with, double-click on their name, type in a message, press enter. That other person on the other end will receive a notification that somebody wants to talk to them. And if they click on it, and I'll show you the receiving end in just a minute, and I'm just trying to get my other computers being a little bit slow here. Okay, now I'm having a little bit of an issue. Oh, there we go. Let's see if it's going to catch up with me here. Well, other computer's a little bit hung up at the moment. So there we go. I think I just saw the message pop up, and they can respond. And we could start having a chat back and forth. Now, you won't see these little pop-ups here in the real world. That's sort of a function of the trial version that I'm using here. All right, so that's an instant message, but what does it look like on the incoming? Now, instant messaging is a form of collaboration. There's no question about it. But you're collaborating in real time rather than waiting for somebody to respond to an email, and if they only check their email every couple of hours, this is obviously much more immediate. But on the incoming side, all right, now you don't have to have the Skype for Business window up and open, but what if the other person initiates a message to you? So let me just go back here. And I can reply in kind, and pardon my typo, send the message back. But from a collaboration point of view, I could also attach a file to somebody. Now, this won't give me a true co-authoring, but still it's a way of getting a file to somebody right away if they need to look at it. And I could press enter, send that along. Now, that person would be able to download a copy of that file, but that wouldn't be true co-authoring unless that file was stored in OneDrive. This particular one wasn't. So another way to collaborate is by Skype for Business sending files. If they're stored in OneDrive, when you attach them, those files would be eligible for co-authoring either in the online web app platform or in the full-blown desktop application. Now, before I go any further, let's now talk about, however, a more robust way of collaborating in Skype for Business, and that is, what if I have a meeting set up in Skype for Business? Now, the fact of the matter is, this class does not address the Outlook aspect, but for those of you familiar with Outlook, you may have noticed a new Skype business, a new Skype meeting button up on your ribbon. That would be something that you would do in Outlook. Now, if this is a meeting that needed to happen here today, all right, and I've got that meeting scheduled already, all I would have to do is go ahead and click join, and I could jump right on into the meeting, and then that we'd be able to exchange information. We could have a on-screen presentation. And so that's something that you can do within Skype for Business, but I'm not going to join that right now. I'm going to save that because this is sort of leading up to the idea of Teams. But Skype for Business is a way of collaborating in real time via instant messaging, sharing files, and perhaps having interactive screen meetings. Now, before I move along, are there any questions or comments about anything presented up until this point that any of you would like me to address right now? Okay, not seeing much activity in the chat window at this point. So, very quick high-level overview of Skype for Business, but the Teams idea, I think, is where things are heading. Now, the fact of the matter is, Teams is something that's relatively new but is rapidly taking hold in the marketplace. And the idea behind Teams, and maybe one of the reasons for its evolution, is at this point you'd still have separate Office 365 tools for separate things. And let me go back to the landing page. So if you wanted to set up a meeting in Outlook, you could do it, but then you could join it. Okay, let's see what that question was real quickly. Attending through a cell phone. Okay, there are apps that are downloadable to phones. The short answer is yes. I'm obviously not going to have the time to demonstrate that, but there are apps available that can use any mobile device with the app on it could be used. Yes, the short answer is yes. All right. Now, there is a Teams app for phones, things like that. But the idea behind Teams, now, this is, of course, for a lot of you, the first exposure. So we're going to just take a pretty high-level overview, essentially a guided tour, give you the big picture idea of what the Teams environment looks like, and some of the elements that allow for collaboration. So let me switch on over here to Teams. Now this does sometimes take a few minutes to get fully up and loaded. Love watching spinning circles, folks. It will get there. Okay, and we finally landed here in Teams. Now, the issue today is not how Teams are created. That's something that could be covered in a more in-depth class. All right, you will notice down here, if I get any messages from Teams and I'm not in it, I can turn on desktop notifications, meaning just like with email, if anything pops in here, I'm going to temporarily dismiss that for the moment. Now, what I would like to do is just sort of step back and say, but here's the bigger idea. All right, Teams has elements of Skype for Business. It's got some Outlook elements and it's got some OneDrive elements, all essentially in what you would call a dashboard for a lot of activities. Now, the thought is that Teams, once they are assembled, can be as many people as you need. Most of the time, Teams are considered private. Right? We don't address how Teams are created. We're going to take a look at if a team is created, what's the lay of the land and the elements on the screen. Now, the name of this particular team is called an IT team. But what The real issue is not doing work at the level of the team. It's what are called the channels or specific areas within teams that collaboration can occur. Now, before I address what goes on here, I also would like to point out, however, these buttons that go up and down the left-hand side here. It will take you immediately to the teams. Now, if you are added to a team, the presence of the team will automatically appear in this box for you. I only have one team set up right now. All right, but if I needed to chat individually with an individual, not with my entire team, well, let's think about this for just a second. If I want to start a new conversation right now, and I just click down here to start a new conversation, everybody in the team would all see it. So it's like a group chat. Now with Skype for Business, if I needed to chat with more than one person at the same time, I could start an individual chat, but then I would have to add other individuals on the fly if I needed to. And then I could add more people to a chat. And then if these were the people on my team, but I'd have to take those extra steps. Now, I don't want to have to do that. If I start a chat with everybody in my team, everybody can jump in on that conversation, and everybody can reply to that conversation if they need to. And so that's kind of a nice feature right there. It's more or less a group chat. But what if I needed to chat with someone on an individual basis? I'll chat up here. All right? And there's that same presence indicator that lets me know that maybe that person's busy right now. It's this really, in a sense, Skype for Business, but I am not in a separate window. I am directly here in Teams, but if I really wanted to start a new message directly to that person, I could type a new message and they could reply. Now here's another difference. If I am chatting with individuals, I don't get a separate conversation for each thing. This is called a persistent chat. So if you have somebody established as one of your contacts, you can always click there and see the entire conversations you've had with them over a long period of time. All right? And like a LAN messenger. I'm not quite sure what the context of this is, but in a sense, it is an instant messaging, but there's more to it than just that. All right? But back in Teams, instead of an individual chat. All right? Now, having said that, if I wanted to do more than this. Now, what's a channel? All right? When a team is created, there's always a new channel created called General. And maybe you post up the information about the purpose of that channel. But teams can have individual channels such as IT issues here. Now let's take a quick look at something like this. It's a channel for sharing information concerning reports to the IT help desk. Come across an issue. All right? So the fact of the matter is, now by posting this information, if I've got 3 or 4 people on my IT team, they would be able to go here and report any issues that were encountered, but then everybody on the team would see what those issues are. All right? But files can be placed into this area as well. Now, here's the area that kind of will start to show what collaboration in Teams, why it's a little bit more robust than OneDrive. All right? If I click Files here, I might see that I've got a hardware inventory list available for everybody on my team if they need to refer to it. That's everybody is able to see that file. All right, so it's sort of a shared, in fact it is based on a SharePoint architecture. It sets up a little SharePoint site for you and any files that are placed in there, but how do the files get in there? All right, if I am in a conversation and I post could go directly to my OneDrive. Now, what am I getting at here? I don't have to go separately to OneDrive through the app launcher to find a file, select the file, and upload a copy. And then that file, even if it was stored in my OneDrive, is now available for everybody on my team. There they are. So I can easily place files in there. I saw a brief question popping up here. Can you add read-only members to teams? Unfortunately, not really. Okay, the level of control here really would be if you had a OneDrive file, the way in which you shared it, but Teams it's kind of based on SharePoint. All right, so I don't want to get too far off track here. The fact of the matter is individual document permissions could be managed through SharePoint, but all right, do you have to set sharing permissions in your OneDrive file before uploading to the Teams library? Set sharing permissions. If you have it in the Teams library, the file is available for everybody. But let's go back here for just a moment. All right, now, I don't want to get too deeply into a lot of the technical here. Let's go back here for a minute. More options. Okay. I believe that if you set the file up, you don't have to really, if you take a file from OneDrive and put it in Teams, essentially it is an editable copy for all. All right. So the fact is, you might want to think through how you're sharing files in Teams if you need to. No, it is still the same file. You're not copying it. You are not creating a separate file. It's just that the file resides in OneDrive but is accessible from Teams. Okay? So you can get the files in there if you need to. Go back to conversations here for a moment. All right. Now, but here's another aspect of Teams that we take a look at. Meetings can be set up within Teams. Now, when I click on this Meetings tab over here, all right, I already have one set up, but I have this view, and this is directly tied to my Outlook calendar. This is the Outlook calendar. All right, so if I did put a meeting on my calendar here, it is the same file. Yes, files that are in Teams that you put from OneDrive, they are the same file. It's a method of sharing with everybody on your team all at the same time instead of sharing with individuals one at a time, which you would do from OneDrive. But you are not, once again, creating separate physical copies of the files. All right, now, in this meetings area, which is essentially tied to my Outlook, I have a daily view of what's happening today, but I could go to tomorrow. Now, it doesn't have features of the Outlook calendar like monthly views, but it does have an agenda view. Now, if you had a meeting set up in Teams already and you needed to join that meeting, you're not going to have to go separately back to Skype for Business or back to Outlook to join the meeting. From the other machine that I'm on over here. Oh, I got my video camera on, and obviously, folks, I'm not having a great hair day here. So, just turn off my video camera. There we go. But what if the other person on this side needed to join that same meeting? Joining the machine here. And there's always a little bit of a lag time here. I'm just waiting for this other machine to join the meeting. And I'm just waiting for a list time issue here. Now at this point, the other person is... Now I have my speaker set up on my other computer, so I have to turn that off to get rid of the echo. But now we are in a meeting. Now if you have used Skype for Business for meetings before, you could then go down here. You could start things, right? You could share your desktop. You could do all sorts of collaboration within the meeting. You could start recording the meeting. So the fact is that for those of you that are familiar with Skype for Business meetings, Teams meetings really sort of have a lot of the same controls and tools, but the bottom line is you're all doing this within the Teams environment, and you're having to constantly switch back and forth between different platforms in order to accomplish those tasks. Now I'm going to go ahead here and leave them. Okay? And so that's the idea there. Now, it's almost 22 minutes after, and I know we're only supposed to be on the call here for about an hour. So at this point, the big picture idea is that there's sort of an evolution going on here. Office 365, which has been around for a while, has given you tools such as Onedrive, where you can securely store your files in a cloud-based location, and then share those files with other people and co-author them in real time. Skype for Business to supplement Outlook in a sense and not have to communicate via email, but do in more real-time instant messaging and perhaps even have meetings. But now the Teams environment pulls all of these elements together essentially into one interface where meetings can be conducted and scheduled, files can be stored and shared, group chats can happen, individual chats can happen, and it's all within the confines of one screen. Now, obviously, we did not cover all of the capabilities of Teams in this brief session. In a sense, this was meant to give you an overview of some of the capabilities and maybe give you the big picture that might whet your curiosity about learning more about how to use these tools in detail. Now, since it's about 25 after the hour, what I'm going to say is this might be an appropriate time then to see if there's any questions that I could answer fairly quickly in the next couple of minutes. Don't forget about our secret word for the day and the raffle involved. But who out there might have any questions about anything that we've covered so far or want me to go back and cover anything again for review purposes? Okay, how easy to search. All right, now, let me see here. I'm going to just put in okay. Basically what I did here was I clicked up into the search box and I typed project budget, and then I said click files, and there's the file. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, are there some other questions out there? Cheryl, I'm not 100% sure of the answer to your question here. I don't have enough content in there to prove that. If I just am searching for messages here, have I ever noticed a lag time when I'm in Teams? Yes, there's, anything that's internet-based is going to be a certain level of connectivity that will affect the speed of the response of when things are going to happen. All right. Now, another question here is, can you search the internet when you're in this program? All right. The fact of the matter is, this is going a little bit beyond the introductory scope. More apps can be added to Teams environment, meaning that you could have a separate tab up near the top here where you could actually go here and add in other things. All right. And so if there was a specific website I needed to go to, right? So the short answer is other apps can be added to the team environment, so the same interface can be used to reach those resources when you need them. Okay, who else may have a question or two at this point? Okay, I'm seeing another quick question coming up here. Oh, well, I appreciate that comment. All right. Now, let me maybe wrap up here, and I'll leave the chat window open. If you're seeing sort of a black square on the bottom, that's because I'm monitoring what's happening within the chat window at this point in time. Okay. Obviously, in an hour, which always goes by very quickly, especially when you're an instructor, hopefully we at least conveyed the big picture of some of the tools available to you. Now, not all organizations are using Teams just yet. A lot of organizations are using OneDrive and Skype for Business, and those tools can be used effectively for a lot of good collaboration, but Teams seems to be where things are going. So hopefully this whets your appetite about learning more, and of course that's what Directions Training does, is help you find that out. Now, don't forget our secret word, which I'm not going to repeat because we wanted to make sure you were paying attention at that point in time, and enter the raffle if you are interested in learning more about Teams by getting a free class in the topic. But to use some football parlance here, it's 12:28, so let me sort of say this is sort of the 2-minute warning. Any last questions before we end the webinar today? All right, folks, well, if that's the case, let's say that it's been a pleasure to be talking to all of you today, and thank you for spending some of your day with us. Applause is always appreciated. Thank you very much. And perhaps we will meet again in another online webinar at some point in the future. And thank you all for your time and participation. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great day, and good luck going forward with working in Office 365 and collaborating. Take care, all.